In this video, I'm going to show you the most common hiding spots in Thames Square. So, whenever you're a hunter, if you start out as a hunter, or if you're a hunter, it's always recommended you go towards the back of the map first, because that is where the hiders spawn. The hiders spawn in the back of the map. They spawn somewhere all around over there. So basically, the first common hiding spot in Thames Square is over here. So what you might see is, you might see a bookshelf. It's usually a bookshelf. Sometimes you see a flower pot hiding in one of these spots, so you can see what it looks like. Something like this. So, something like this. Sometimes you see one over here. And those are basically it. Sometimes you see a bookshelf here. Another one you might see is right here. This one is common, so don't let this one fool you either. So this is actually a fake block as well. Okay, next, over here. So the way to know if there's something over here or not is if there's a fourth block. And usually that fourth block is a cake. So I'm going to morph into a cake. So sometimes it's a flower pot, but usually it's a cake. So you'll see, if you see a fourth block over here, then it's fake. Okay, the next common spots are in here. These spots are very common because they're really close to the hider spawn. So hiders are generally going to find a spot that's close to where they spawn. And so one of those spots would be right here, where they might hide as a flower pot. It should be pretty obvious, because what you should do is you should press F3 and B at the same time so you can see which block is fake. And if the block isn't solid, then what's going to happen is they're not going to... Okay, I hate when this happens. There we go. So if they're hiding as a flower pot in there, you're going to see their hitbox, so that makes sense. Now another thing you might see is a cauldron. A cauldron might be hiding right here, so the cauldron that I am, this is fake. And I don't think you usually see anything else. I guess sometimes you see one right here or here, but I mean, it'll be pretty obvious. So that's just what it is. Another thing, notice how the flower pots always look like this. If they don't look like this, that means there's most likely going to be a block right here. If there's a block right here, it's usually either a flower pot or a note block. So if there's a note block, it will look like that. But then again, yes, you might see a flower pot. You might also see a flower pot right here. So that's also a fake block. Okay, a TNT, you might see a TNT right here. So you can kind of see how that's fake. So this is fake block. I guess sometimes you see a TNT right here. I mean, usually you don't. Sometimes you see a TNT right here. Okay, next. I mean, there's really, like right now, I probably wouldn't check any of the sheets because I only see 3, so there probably isn't any fake sheep. But sometimes there are sheep that are fake. Okay, next common hiding spot. Yes, this tends to be sometimes common. Sometimes you see a note block right all the way over here. Sometimes you see a note block. I say this is the most common one. You see a note block right here. And sometimes you see a note block, a second note block right here. Or, I mean, yes, I've seen this. I saw this one today. A second note block right here. Usually you don't see anything like this, so. Anyways, that's common. Next, this pumpkin patch, I forgot what it was, is actually relatively common spots to find. For example, right here, this is a common spot. Another thing, notice how we have these 2 blocks up here. If you see a third one, like for example this one, it's actually a fake block. So this is a fake. You see this one actually quite a lot. It's actually fake. Another one is right here. This actually, yeah, this is actually a fake. This is actually a really common spot right there as well. Sometimes you see a pumpkin hiding around here, but this will be pretty easy to spot because they won't become solid there. So that's another thing. Okay, one more thing. Yes, this is probably the most common spot. More common than those pumpkin patches, but like right here, notice how this tends to be a common spot. Sometimes for flower pots, sometimes for melons. Another thing, if you have an anvil, this is a common spot right here. Okay. Melons, yes, this is probably the most common spot over here. You see that? That is the most common spot in this melon patch. I think that's what it's called. Okay. This bookshelf spot, this actually is a weird one. Before time runs out, we have one right here. This is pretty common. And notice how there's only 2 bookshelves on top. If you see a third one on top, like right here, or right here, then it's fake. So these are fake. So there should only be 2 bookshelves on top. By the way, if we go up here, I'd say the most common spot in here is hiding as a cake. So I'm gonna get a cake. Hiding as a cake or just anything. right here. So if you see something right here, here, basically if you know what this looks like, you can probably spot a fake block on this stack right here. There usually isn't anything right here. Sometimes you see a Flowerpot hiding in these spider webs. That's basically it. Now, this isn't a very common infestor spot anymore, but sometimes you see infestors hiding in these furnaces. Notice how these are these stone blocks right here. These are actually furnaces right there and right there. Sometimes you see that. Another thing, a bookshelf. This is probably the only spot that you'll ever see in this bookshelf stack right here, where I'm hiding right now. That's a pretty common spot. Next, right here in this furnace stack. Basically, if you have, this is a glitch, by the way, it should be a furnace, but sometimes you see a stone block. Let's assume it's a furnace. This is a pretty common spot. This is a pretty common spot. Notice how those spots look really similar to each other, because notice how I'm in between 3 blocks. So that's a common spot, and that's a common spot right here. Okay. Next. Another thing, yes, there was this spot right here. This is really common. Make sure yeah, that's a pretty common spot. Also, if you just anywhere behind stone, really, this is pretty common. If you see a melon or a flower pot right here, or even a chicken, these tend to be quite common. So you could also look out for those. Okay, let's go over these 2 bookshelf stacks. So for this one, notice how there is 3 blocks over here. 3 blocks on top for this bookshelf stack. But over here, there's 2 bookshelves on top. So that's the main difference between these. However, you might also see a bookshelf right here. This tends to be a pretty common spot, right here. Notice how there's 4 on top. That can't happen. Notice how there could also be one right here. Or if you see a bookshelf on one of these corners. So for example, right here, that would be fake, that would be fake, and that one would be fake. Those are the common spots over here. Okay. For this bookshelf stack, it's really, this is a really common spot because you're between 3 blocks. This tends to be really common. Another common spot here would be right here. So if you see a bookshelf right there, that would be fake. Another one would be right here. This is a fake spot. And that's pretty much it for over here. This cauldron spot, I used to see lots of people hide here. I don't really see that anymore. So, that's your call if you want to know that. It's not a really common spot to go anymore. Here, there should be 3 melons right here. So 1, 2, 3. If you see a 4th one, which sometimes you do, usually it would be right here. It would be fake. Okay. Another common spot is right here. If you look over here, sometimes you see any block here. So if any block could be at this spot right here for some reason. Usually it's a chicken though, and sometimes there's more than one. Another thing, if you have F3B turned on, it should be much easier to see. You could see a chicken, right? You could see a chicken over here. If you don't have Optifine, you could go a little closer to see if there's a flower pot. So up there in those leaves, someone could be hiding there. So that's a pretty common hiding spot. There's people who are more experienced with the map or know a little bit more about it. Now, let's talk about this house. So, before I talk about this house, let's just make sure we've done that house over there. That's the house we've gone over. Now we're going over this house. More hiders tend to hide in that house than this house. All right, this house, not as many people. But there are a few common spots in here. For example, right here, this tends to be a pretty common spot. So right there, that tends to be common. Another one, this is the most common spot in this house. You got bookshelves right here. Sometimes you see a third. Sometimes you see a third bookshelf right here. Sometimes you see a bookshelf right here. So those spots are fake. Furnace. You usually don't see this, but if you do, you should be able to recognize this. Now, a cauldron could hide right here. This is the only spot I've seen right here with cauldrons. Okay, this would be a cauldron, right? Right there. This is the only spot I've really seen in that stack. And that's pretty much it. Looks like there's one more stack we have to go over for this part of the map. Almost. Right here we have this TNT stack. Basically, someone could hide right here. I'd say that's pretty common. But the most common spot by this TNT stack is over here. For example, right here. Notice how there's 2 TNT blocks in a row? Right, that can happen, so this is fake. Also, this is fake. Okay, so that's basically it. We've gone over this tent. Let's go over this tent right here. This is much more common to hide in for hiders. This is more common hiding spots right here. Much more common than it is over here. So right here, You can see this is a fake spot. Also, this is a fake spot right here. Notice how all these spots are in between 3 or more blocks. And that's the main idea of it all. Also right here, assuming that chicken wasn't there, oh, we're fine. They're all between 3 blocks. Another one, this, sometimes you'll see this. Or if you see 3 blocks on top, like right here, notice how there's 3 blocks on top right here. Or right here, or here. That's basically it for that stack. Another common spot you can see, so we've gone over this, okay. So we've gone over this tent and this tent. Another tent we have to go over is this third tent right here. Basically, it's, if you see a block right here, then it's fake. That's basically it. So basically, that's it. Once you see that, that's basically a fake block. Okay, now right here, you usually don't see anything go inside the cauldrons, but rather you sometimes see hiders hide as a cauldron. For example, you might see 3 blocks in a row right here. That means one of them has to be fake. Another thing, this one right here, if you see a cauldron right here, then that's fake. Another one, if you see a cauldron right here, notice how it's in between 3 blocks, that would be fake. So most of the fake hiding spots, you can see that there's this pattern going on. Some of them are surrounded by 3 blocks, and many hiders tend to hide like that for some reason. I don't know why. Another thing, okay, I'm not going to go over each of these individual stacks, by the way, because they're not that common. But this actually is sometimes common. Sometimes you see a flower pot hiding right here, and I actually see this quite a lot sometimes. So right here, you might see a flower pot here, or a flower pot right here. Not the most common, okay, but you sometimes see that. No. Okay, in here, sometimes, basically the only reasonable spot you'll see someone hide is most likely just a block that's right here. So specifically right here. That's the most common spot in there. Okay, and I'd say none of these tents are really common to hide in. I've seen it maybe like, I don't know how many times I've seen it because I don't keep track, because these are not really common spots to hide in, right? They're just, no one hides there. Okay, so let's talk about this house. And basically, this is the largest house of the entire map, of course. It's this entire thing right here. And basically, I'm going to start going from left to right, like this, okay? Another thing, right here, this stack, basically the only most common spot here is if you see a note block right here. I guess you sometimes see an infestor over here. It's not really common anymore. I'd say the most common spot in this room is if you see a chicken or a flower pot hiding in these, hiding that spider web right there. Okay. This looks pretty good. No, nothing really common in here. Okay. Another common spot is if you see a flower pot or a melon hiding right here. So it could be a flower pot or a melon, and it's usually either that. So let's just see what it looks like. It looks like that. So that is a fake melon, and it tends to be quite common for some reason. Another one right here. If you see a melon right here, this is a fake melon. This is fake. Okay, those are the common spots over there. Okay, you don't really see something go. You don't really see much go over here. Nothing really in that anvils. I've seen it before. It's not really common though. I guess sometimes you see a flower pot go right here. It's not really common though. Sometimes you see it. Over here, yes, sometimes you do see something over here. I guess you should just, I mean, if you want to know it, then I guess you should know what that stack looks like, know what this stack looks like. I mean, I guess you could see a TNT go here. It's sometimes common, but usually you don't see it. Another thing, there are infestor spots that some of you might know completely, or you just don't know of them at all. For example, this looks like a wood block, but it's really the top of a bookshelf. Notice how I'm actually a bookshelf and not a wood block. And if that's a wood block, that means infestor could infest in it. And in fact, they don't fall down when they infest on it. In fact, so this basically, this is an infestor spot right here. I should be a flower pot. So this right here is an infestor spot. So you have to know this. So if you want to know the common hiding spots, this is a common infestor spot. 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 And last but not least, actually not last but not least, this is a common infestor spot. That's what many people know about. And that's basically, yeah, there's more infestor spots, such as note blocks over there. I'll get to that. But these are the most common spots to infest in the map. Okay. Let's see, what else is common in here? Over here, I mean, this is a little common. Again, sometimes you see a flower pot here, sometimes you see a bookshelf. And I guess you sometimes see a flower pot in here. I've actually seen this a little bit more common. Sometimes you see a melon right here or a melon right here. So these tend to be a little common. And this is the part that used to be easy to get into, but now it's not easy. As you can see, you gotta do some weird things because the doors are glitched for some reason. Notice how it does random stuff like that. And this is the infestor spots I was talking about, since these are actually common infestor spots for some reason. Of course, sometimes you see a note block hide like this. Okay. And there's a little bit more spots. For example, there might be a flower pot hiding right here. So this tends to be a common spot. Sometimes you see it. There's not really that many common spots in that room. So that is basically it for the building. There's not that many. There's not that many as you saw, because this is quite far away from the hiding spawn, right? The hiders spawn really far away from that house, so not many people will hide there. But some people, maybe they're curious and want to check it out. Okay, for the melons, I mean, I would generally just know what the stack looks like, because sometimes you do just see something hiding here like that. Okay. Anything else? I don't think so. I guess you should kind of, if you have F3B on, again, F3B, you should keep an eye out for stuff on the edge of the map. And that's basically it.